Bring him in.
Bring him in.
Bring in Joe Weisenthal.
I don't want to wait anymore.
Oh, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm really good. I'm thrilled to be back here.
How are you
What do
holding
you do
up?
when?
What do you
how
do
are you
when
holding
it's
on
flat?
when the market's
The
flat?
market was flat on Monday, and we didn't know what to do. Normally, we're either depressed and praying for something to change, or celebrating a big update. We've seen these like 5% swings, and it's just been boring.
It's so painful. I thought, the market stopped moving, and I was like, the technology brothers will never have me back. They'll never have a reason to call me again. I had 1 month of relevancy. People were listening to my podcast because the lines were moving up and down, and then they stopped. And I'm like, okay, well, I enjoyed it while it lasts.
It's
Go
all
back
over.
to obscurity. So
we were having you on to move.
You have me back on the show.
We're having you on to move the market.
Yeah. This will drive the market.
We'll see what
We want to create
here.
some volatility. Just off of
let's do it.
some
Let's do it.
some
Let's-
zingers.
Well, I mean, so with the trade war, I kind of had this like somewhat controversial take that like the trade war was not like COVID or the interest rate crash because the person who caused it could immediately undo it, and Trump could roll it back. Which he did. And I was talking to Jordan Schneider trying to talk about this. Like he was saying like, no, this time is different. It's not going to be like the trade war from Trump 1. We're going to look back on this as like the beginning of the end. It's terrible.
Yeah.
He was very doom pilled, but it feels like now if we flash forward 4 years, we could be looking back on this and being like, that was a crazy month, but it wasn't that big of a deal in like the world historical context. What's your read on it now?
It's a really tough call because I was very sympathetic to that. And then as soon as he walks it back, you're like, well, of course he was going to walk it back. You're so stupid for everything. That's different. All that being said.
We have a laugh track now.
I love that. It's so professional. All that being said, a 10% baseline tariff on the rest of the world is not nothing. We're now a high tariff country.
Oh, yeah.
There is this pause, but a 50% tariff or whatever it's going to be is not nothing. These are not complete nothings.
Yeah.
And I do believe that they will change the economy in some ways that they anticipate. Look, when he unveiled that chart on April 2nd, I thought it's like, well, he's basically unplugging the economy. We can't function with these levels. And he sort of realized that too. He said the bond market got yips. He went back, and then he probably heard stories about potential empty shelves at places like Walmart and Home Depot and stuff, and then he dialed it back further. We're still in a new era, though, of trade. It might be more like Brexit, where it's like, if you go to, I was in London a few weeks ago. It's still the same old UK. It's still a pretty like rich country. It's doing well, but they haven't grown that much. It hasn't been particularly good. So it might be the kind of thing where we don't notice it dramatically, except maybe we don't grow as much as we could. Who knows, though?
Can you
I don't
this
know.
to the,
I don't know if it's the weather, but when I'm in the UK, it's something about the slow growth of the economy that's just
you can
feel
smell
it. You can smell it.
Oh, well, hopefully that doesn't cover America. Can you tie this to the credit downgrade? How serious is that? Should we care about what Moody's thinks about us?
I don't care about credit ratings. Okay. I mean, I'm sort of a strict view that we borrow in currency, we borrow in dollars and print dollars, so we'll never default. But there is I would say there's two things, which is one, that it looks like we're going to get some sort of inflationary mix potentially between tariffs and tax cuts. So that tends to not be very good for treasuries. And to the extent that like policy changes in the U.S. are now, everyone understands that they can be unilaterally changed on a whim. Probably not great, all things considered, for the perceived institutional stability. So that's probably also not great at the margin for the international proclivity to invest in the United States. The one thing that's really notable is that a lot of markets clearly have rebounded to an extraordinary degree, most notably the stock market.
Bitcoin,
the dollar is still very weak.
Bitcoin, all-time high.
Bitcoin, all-time high. Amazing.
All-time high.
The dollar is still very weak.
Pomp
It hasn't
today.
rebounded. Well, can I, by the way, Pomp was on earlier?
Can
I just say,
surprise guest.
Can I just say, the first time I was on this show, one of the questions the two of you asked me was, will SPACs ever come back? And I said, well, in my lifetime, they will definitely come back. Pump has a new SPAC. When I said that SPACs would come back, I was thinking like 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I did not think that we would be getting a rebound.
They said Pomp doesn't have the balls to launch a SPAC in the year 2025, and he proved him wrong.
And he
proved him wrong.
I've never had a prediction come true that fast as that one. So I appreciate Pomp vindicating my last appearance on TBPN.
Yeah, that's great.
Vindicated.
I want to talk about like the Middle East deals. What was your read on all of that? It didn't seem like it was super market moving per se, but it was very big in tech, and it seems like there's this new era of cooperation there. It seemed like amid all the turmoil of the tariffs, there was like this bright spot of like some really strong new alliances. Obviously, there's some controversy there, but what was your read on the Middle East news?
You know, I've been posting about this a lot, ever since I hit my mid 40s. I've been reading a lot about the Cold War and mid 20th century history because that's what you do at my age and so forth. But one of the things that I've been reading about lately is that one of the, every time the U.S. and the Soviet Union appeared to have some period of détente, so to speak, one of the entities or one of the forces that pushed the countries apart were the sort of like the human rights groups, et cetera, that really didn't like, various activities going on in the Soviet Union, and that often made it difficult to have peace. It's an interesting thing to think about. Well, what if foreign policy just became a little bit more transactional? We sort of accept that, like, there's like a very different system in this country than, this other country. But you know what? Maybe we can have stable relations if we agree to sell them cutting-edge GPUs to set up an AI. It's an interesting thought. And I don't have like extreme or strong views on foreign policy. It's not my wheelhouse. But it's an interesting thing to think about. For so long, there was this view that, like an important aspect of stable relations was some sort of common ground in governance and values and so forth. And maybe we're entering this era where stable relations are who we agree to sell chips to.
On the other side
it's an interesting thing to think about.
Jensen, another $100 billion for Jensen.
Yeah,
he's been on a tear.
Jensen keeps winning. Yeah,
I mean,
except in China.
Have you been tracking how many conferences he's been going to? It feels like he's at a different conference every single day, and yet. Normally that would be a very, very distracting for a CEO, but every time he goes to a conference, he leaves with a $100 billion deal. So it seems like it's working.
It's really remarkable. And, again, I don't know how much, like I've been trying to think about this, like, because the way people are talking about AGI, and you guys have probably a lot of guests who know way more, and being out there is like, the race to achieve AGI is something akin to like which country will develop the nuclear bomb first. We must get there. I don't know. It feels a little sci-fi to me. I don't know how much to take that seriously. Other people are better equipped to talk about that. But there is this sort of like simple business story, which is like ecosystem that powers AI, or could it be the Huawei ecosystem, which is coming on strong? And so to the extent, like just from a business standpoint, Jensen going around the world, making all these sales, potentially boxing out Huawei from the Middle East, just from a business standpoint, seems to be doing very well.
Yeah, we were just talking to Scott Wu and from Cognition. They have an AI coding agent, and this idea that we have AGI, but it's just 15-minute AGI. Like you can get an agent to go and do 15 minutes worth of research for you and compile a little dossier for you in deep research. You don't have AGI to the extent that you can just say, go create economic value for the rest of your life like you can with a human. And the economic incentives just lead to a person finding their way in the economy and finding a job and buying things and consuming things.
I still haven't had like a great experience yet with any of the agent tools. I was, someone asked me, they're like, do you have a list of all of the Twitter handles of guests that have appeared on Odd Lots? And I was like, no, but let's see if I can do that. So I went to Manus, the Chinese Manus.im, and I said, can you put this together? Oh, yeah, sorry, I know. And then...
It's pronounced Manus, too, by the way, Manus.
And then it worked for like, it was like 30 minutes later, I went back and checked, and it said, oh, you're out of credits. I never even got to see if it worked yet. So I don't know. I have yet to experience.
Well, the question for me is how long do you think it would take, like an intern to do that job?
Well, it would take a really long time, but like, I don't even like, but like my experience, I think we may have talked about this last time. Like my experience, like I'm still not, totally convinced that they're like reliable yet. I don't know. Like, maybe I need to keep experimenting.
I think you make a good point. It's just that when I think of 15-minute AGI, I think that what's a 15-minute job? It's look at the most recent Odd Lot show notes and find me the one Twitter handle for the guest.
Yeah.
And now if you want to do that 200 times, that's not 15-minute AGI. That's 1 week AGI. And you need to spawn all these different processes and orchestrate them and fact check them and build that up. And so, yes, Mana should be able to do that, but it's not
I think it's just wildly unreliable right now.
Yep.
And so sometimes you get an output that is 10 times faster and better than your best employee.
Yep.
And then sometimes it just completely fails.
Yep.
And we're not really equipped to like process, okay, is the agent good? Okay, well, sometimes the agent is incredible. And then other times it's like yesterday I wanted it to count a bunch of boxes and it like worked on it for 14 minutes and failed.
I completely agree. Like I'm every day still. And by the way, I've Suno, the music app. I'm a songwriter. That's incredible. That actually, of all the AI tools that I've played with, that might actually be the one that's most incredible. I've been doing this thing where I just sing a song into my phone,
cool.
and then I say, now produce this to sound like an 80s country song, and it actually works. So that, like, some of these things just like absolutely blow me away.
I have a thesis for that because with music, there's no right answer. Like there's no oh, you got one character wrong in the Twitter handle and it's not going to resolve, right? But if you get one note slightly wrong but it still sounds like music, you can kind of chalk that up to the vibe or slight differences. And so I feel like that's why the image generation it's less like binary. Or you have code where it compiles and it can work against itself and check, okay, does the code work or not? Try again, try again. And so you either need to be, when you're in the messy middle of like human management, decision making, analysis, that's where AI is really struggling right now.
So just going back to the question of like, can AI compile all of the Twitter handles from every guest? I'm guessing the answer is yes. On the other hand, if that's what AGI is, I'm not really sure it's existential whether the Chinese model is better than OpenAI's model.
AGI is when you can ask ChatGPT to bring down the long end of the yield curve because it's really getting up there. And right now, if I could just go into ChatGPT and say, "Hey,
let's do something.
Can you help us out here? Let's do something out here."
we need to develop right away.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. I know you have a
Manhattan Project level urgency.
I know you have a podcast episode coming out tomorrow about bond yields globally, what's happening. Could you give people a little teaser preview on that, and then they can go listen to the full thing?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for letting me plug our episode tomorrow. Stephen Englander, Standard Chartered, one of our favorite thinkers. We actually never had him on the show. You know, the story, there's a few moving parts to what's going on. But a big thing is this combination of countries around the world are spending more money. They kind of have to because, you know, like, again, we talked about U.S. foreign policy. Germany doesn't know if the U.S. is going to be the same type of ally. Trump, for years, even going back to his first administration, obviously encouraging the NATO countries to sort of more formally meet their commitments. So you have increased spending. At the same time, you have tariffs, which are going to make business more costly, probably less efficient, because you're not going to have the most optimally designed global supply chain that would exist in a world of
free trade,
sort of pure free trade. So you have this combination of every country sort of having to become a little bit more self-reliant, at least in some respects. And you certainly see that in a lot of like tech areas, weapons, probably food even as well, energy and so forth. Combined with the fact that, you know, you're having sort of less efficient supply chains, that's probably, all things considered, means, you know, more inflation. And for to hit inflation targets, central banks are going to have to, generally speaking, keep rates up. We might get rate cuts in the U.S. in the short term. That's what Stephen Englander thinks. That's certainly what the market is pricing. But he thinks the window for that will be pretty short, and maybe even by next year we could be talking about rate hikes again. Yeah, I know. We need that AGI. We need that AGI to bring down rates.
How do you think the big tech companies have been changing their tune around how they talk about AGI? It used to be all about safety, which you know, I think a lot of people have kind of just gotten sick of the safety argument. Now it's all product, and all of a sudden it's we're not moving fast enough. You know, Siri isn't good.
Yeah, it's confusing. It's a little bit confusing because, I mean, first of all, I agree. The safety story feels very yesterday. This is such a business story. The market, for better or worse, and I don't really have a view on safety, but the market, for better or worse, seems to be dictating to the companies. It's like, no, you got to race ahead as fast as you can. You do not have an alternative to this and so forth. And you even see it, obviously, like when DeepSeek came out and it displayed its reasoning. OpenAI had to respond and it started displaying some of its reasoning models. So there's the sheer competitive aspect that, like, you just sort of got to do what you got to do for, like, the product side. On the other hand, there are things that the tech companies are doing that do not sort of seem to me, within a year they're going to build, or within a couple of years, they're going to have these brains that are thousands of times more intelligent than a human. I saw there was something about OpenAI, I think about a social network. They hired a CEO for like product and revenue. There was that news today about buying a heart. I think Johnny Ives. You probably already talked
Johnny
about
Ives going in. Yeah.
These sound like ventures, or these sound like investments that are about making money for a business, which
Consumer
is great,
tech.
and do not sound like we are building something insane in a lab that is going to change the world. Yep. So it feels like there is this impulse among the big AI companies of various flavors to basically build good businesses and profitable things, rather than this technology that, is going to render human existence obsolete in some way or another.
Yeah. Yeah, and it feels like OpenAI as a lab, there could come a time when OpenAI could kind of what's the right phrase for it? But effectively, like, OpenAI will be in a position where they can be like, yeah, we're a consumer internet company.
Yeah,
and there will be other there'll be other labs that don't have the luxury of saying that, and it'll be interesting if there's like this kind of divergence in. I mean, the flip side of this, have to keep the AGI narrative going.
I think the steel man on the AGI narrative is that, like, would we have gotten this amazing consumer technology and enterprise technology and all this value without the crazy AGI narrative that drove nonprofit investment in highly unprofitable research? And it's kind of like, I feel like everyone makes the comparison to nuclear, but when I play back the story on nuclear, it's like America did this incredible Oppenheimer Manhattan project to develop the bomb, which I don't see as really like a good thing. Like, the bomb, obviously, it's just like it only destroys things, and then it immediately becomes this arms race, and this equilibrium is just that you have to build a ton of them, but none of them get used. They create no real economic value, right? But the good ending of nuclear would have been energy too cheap to meter, nuclear power everywhere. We didn't get that. And my hope is that we're in this situation where we have the panic scare around AGI as a weapon, but we don't go the nuclear path where, you can't possibly have ChatGPT, it's too dangerous.
No, I agree with you. And I think if you look at, like, I mean, it is absolutely extraordinary, the rate of growth that big tech companies are growing from. I mean, this is what's sort of breaking the brains of everyone in the market, which is that everyone's been long big tech forever. They're the biggest companies in the world, and they're still putting up some of the biggest earnings growth that you can find anywhere in the market off of a gigantic base. That's crazy. I do think part of that story is got to be that the CEOs really believe, to some extent. And I don't know exactly what they believe, and I don't know exactly what AGI is, and they probably all have different definitions, but they probably all believe it's like, no, like, we're not going to slow down our spending on this stuff because we haven't achieved that thing that's out there that will be so special if it's achieved.
Well, I got to ask Joe, would you rather own Costco at 59 times earnings, Costco at 59 times earnings, or Google at 19? Rotisserie chickens.
You'll never get me to
Glizzies.
make, you'll never get me to give finance. You tell me, why is everyone so negative on Google these days? What's the story? I don't get it.
I think products have just been really hard to access. Like, they're an incredible research lab, but they haven't communicated very effectively around the product. So they introduce the product and it's in a research preview. They have a paper, but in order to access it, like ChatGPT, when there's a new feature, you go to chat.com and it just says use this thing. And with Google, it's like there's the Gemini app, and then there's Gemini smart responses, and then there's
it's so
Notebook
confusing.
LLM,
but that's the product experience, and then there's obviously like the threat to the core
business model.
Core
that if
the
you
golden
just wind
goose.
up searching in ChatGPT, you stop.
They got a
Google.
They got a knife on the neck of the golden goose.
Yeah, no, it's true. The Google AI products, some of them are extraordinary. I've played around with some of the coding tools. Notebook LM is a very useful tool for research. It is true that like no one would ever know how to find any of this stuff.
It's really hard, especially
it's in the App Store now. Notebook LM's in the App Store. It's charted.
Notebook LM, what kind of name is that? Who would even know what that is? It does seem, I don't know.
What kind of name is Joe Weisenthal?
But what kind of name? What kind of name is like O3 Mini?
Yeah, they're all bad names.
The names won't matter.
The names don't matter, I think. But yeah, there's something about like Google is, if they really, really went full tilt into AI, they would just say Google.com is our AI product.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of being like, there's a separate app, Gemini, and like you can go over here and we have an extra thing. Instead of being like, no, like we are an AI company.
Could you see that happening?
No, I don't think the company's set up for it at all. But I think that
on a long enough time
it might be
horizon,
different if it's Mark Zuckerberg and he owns 100% of the shares and he can just do whatever he wants. It's a private company and there's no investors that can sue. Like there are different structural dynamics at Google than at a small startup.
I can just see it being more as a spectrum.
Yeah, please.
Can I ask another question to you guys? Do you have a clear way to articulate the benefit that Meta is getting from all of its AI spending?
I mean, yes, because the base use of AI at Meta, the number one like just energy cost in GPUs is ads, delivery of ads.
But isn't that just good old-fashioned machine learning algorithm stuff? Like, what does that have to do with generative AI?
It's the same thing. Like the algorithm that decides what ad to serve you when you're scrolling Instagram is a big transformer now. And so it's a bunch of weights, just like an LLM, but instead of taking in text and putting out text, it takes in everything that you've looked at, how long you looked at it, what you liked about it, whether you commented. So it's just getting
better and better at that targeting.
And so that's a huge training run. They never talk about this because it's not sexy and it's not the new hot thing. But you can think about like the Meta ads training run as similar to like a GPT-3, GPT-4 level training run. And then the Reels algorithm for what content to serve you, not just what ads, that's also another huge vertical. And so when Zuck went to build out the Reels algorithm farm, the server farm that would power the Reels algorithm, because it's billions and billions of data points, right? He said, I don't want to get caught flat-footed again like I did against TikTok, because when TikTok came up and the whole algorithm shifted to, I need to rank every piece of content across the entire network and match billions and billions of videos with billions and billions of users. He said, I don't want to get caught flat-footed again. Build me 2 data centers that are the same scale. And then he had extra capacity thinking about, okay, I have 2 data centers because I just built double. Let's train an LLM. And then the more tactical reason is that LLMs are going to get stuffed everywhere in every enterprise.
I've noticed, and sometimes I just accidentally wander into an LLM.
Yeah, but not even from the consumer perspective. Like, think about within Facebook, they have to process payments from their advertisers, and they might want to run those through an LLM to say, are we being defrauded? Or there's a consumer, there's customer support that's happening, or any little internal thing. Even just like, should we censor this comment for a user who's under 18 years old, right? Like that is an LLM that runs in the background. It's not consumer facing. Why would they have to pay OpenAI for that? Why would they have to pay Google for that?
No, this makes a lot of sense. Can I say one more thing?
Please.
I need to, for anyone who's watching, I have a lot of dear friends. Please never send me a reel. I never watch them. Like someone's like, oh, they send you a reel. It's like, oh, I'd rather not. So I would like to use your platform.
Carrier pigeon.
What's
the best way to get in touch?
My friends know I love them. Yeah, you send me a DM, whatever. I'm just not going to watch your reel.
But I'm going to mail you a DVD of the best reels.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm going to mail you a DVD, a Blu-ray. of just all the best reels.
Well, what about taking it a step further? Vinyl, and it's us describing reels to Joe.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
No, I love it. I would do that. We would do that all day. If someone sends me DMs me a reel, I'm like, do we really have to do that?
Imagine a bunch of colorful marbles falling down the stairs endlessly. Or imagine Subway Surfers in the background while Joe Rogan talks about weightlifting with Elon Musk. Yeah. That's really high performance stuff, but you'll hear it on vinyl for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Anyway, this was fantastic.
Anytime.
Let's make this a regular thing.
This is such a fun conversation.
Anytime. I love chatting with y'all.
We're gonna just put a calendar hold on.
Yeah, we'll throw you something.
If any part of you ever thinks, I'm not excited to talk to John and Jordy today, then we'll cancel.
I'm always excited to talk.
That's great. Yeah. Well, we'd love to have you back. Thank you so much.
I'll be back.
Thank
you for moving the market.
This is great.